Welcome, Heaven on Earthers, to today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. I appreciate you tuning in and co creating this moment here with me, helping you to live life on your terms, prosperity, love, and abundance achieved not through effort, but through embodiment of your divine within. I am your host, Lucian St. James. You are only seeing more of yourself out there, and that's what none of us really want to deal with. And that's the whole secret, right? Is that you are the operant power, you are the energetic source of origin or ministry ideology. Nobody needs to teach you to manifest because you are already a master manifester. But if we talk about what manifestation is, and there's many different definitions out there. Every single one of them are valid because everything is valid. Every single thing here is possible in one way or the other. And like, that's the true secret of it, is that, if we look at all of these different layered parallel realities, our job is to tune to the desired end of the state of what we would like to experience, but we have to be that experience first, and that being is the act of that tuning. But I like to look at manifestation as the creative act of being, and that being it, that whatever it is that you assign to yourself as the truth of yourself through the power of your I am, and whatever it is that you know with certainty. And when I say know with certainty, I don't mean that it's validated out there, but that's the problem, is that we tend to, if we've experienced something over and over and over again, we believe that we have enough validation then on the meaning that I can see that this is a valid aspect of a highly probable, highly likely outcome. I see out there, because this has happened so many times, that this is something that I am certain of, because I have verifiable, based on the past, frequency of experiences that lead me to believe that this is going to be the case. So manifestation is being certain of the outcome, certain of your state, regardless of what we see out there. Because in order to tune to a new reality, you have to imagine yourself in a state of being that you have not yet experienced. And if you haven't yet experienced it, then if you think about that, if you haven't yet experienced it, then looking out there for it to show itself, to reveal itself to you, is not going to be a very effective. You're just going to keep seeing. If you're looking out there to define in here, and who you say that you are, then you're only going to keep experiencing out there. And that doesn't even have to work on a level of spirituality. I mean, like, that's like also just like core tenets of basic mental health. But one of my favorite quotes by Neville Goddard, to keep up my calendar here, is, you are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe it is the reason that you don't see it. But the key word there is believe, because if we're talking about believing something, we're talking about doubt. And what do we weigh doubt against? Evidence. So you are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe it is the reason that you don't see it. So we don't have to believe anything. You have to step into the realm of declaration, of decision, of, I know that this is the case. And I'll tell you a story of, I was working with a client, and she says, I'm lonely in my relationship. And she's telling me the ins and outs, and I asked them how they spend their time. And I said, well, if you were to think about how this person expresses love to you, is it consistent with the way that you want love expressed? What's your love language? Just get into the nitty gritty about different things. And as she's talking, and as we're continuing to really lay out the contents and the daily ongoings, the monthly ongoings, the routine ongoings of this relationship, I asked her, well, what is it that you would want more of? And she said, quality time. And I said, and that looks like what? And she was like, I don't know. I said, well, do you spend time together? And she's like, well, yeah, and we go on outings, and this person takes me on dates, and we eat dinner together, we watch TV together. I said, so what? I said, is this person like maybe on their phone when you guys are watching TV, or where is it that you would, that you feel like you're not getting quality time? And she was like, I don't know. I said, okay, so, well, just tell me what quality time is for you, and then we can talk about if you communicated that. Um, and again, this is, we're working on, like, we're not even talking about spirituality. And she's like, I don't know. I feel like it's something that's missing. And I was like, okay, tell me about your childhood. So, it all goes back to conditioning. And what we ended up finding out is that she actually does get a good deal of quality time with her relational partner. But the barrier in that is that she felt very distant from her parents growing up. Her parents were very distant from each other. So, what she was experiencing was this sense that no matter how close I am to somebody, that we could be sitting in the same room, I feel like I'm missing that emotional attachment. But that was not the present reality of what she was actually experiencing. But because she believed, because she was in the state of somebody who was always reaching for connection from the person that's right there. So she had created successfully for herself, manifested in state of being. She was somebody who was in a relationship. She was in a relationship with somebody. They did activities together, and that, otherwise there were no major stressors or ailments that were impeding the connection within the relationship. However, she was in a state of being of somebody that I'm always reaching out and it always seems too far away. So, in assessing her present circumstances, she couldn't even actually define necessarily what it was that she meant, because she wasn't responding to the current circumstance. She was responding to the past. So, simply because she wasn't in a state of knowledge of knowing I am in a committed, happy relationship where we are connected and spend quality time to each other, there was that past state of being that was there. So you are the only, and you're only ever experiencing yourself. That person could only mirror, the relational partner could only mirror back to her what she already felt to be the case. And that, yes, that happens on like a quantum level of materialization, but it also happens, it happens at every level. It happens through the realm of perception. You could have everything you want right in front of you, but because you aren't in a state, like, because you're viewing the world through the lens of I need, meaning that I lack, meaning that it's not here, it doesn't matter if it's here. And that also creates that lens of I need, also then creates so again, you're only ever seeing yourself, you only ever get what you already have, because heaven is a place on earth, but it is a matter of the frequency that you are tuned to. Everything is everything. When I say heaven is a place on earth, what I mean is that everything's already here now. Everything. If we look at, the whole alphabet is already here now. But if you keep experiencing K and you want J, well, you have to pay attention to J, and you have to be J, and you have to observe J, and you have to be in harmony with J. Otherwise, you're going to keep seeing K. And we could, exchange this out for conditions. It's all already here. For instance, if you're someone who is seeking to create more financial abundance in their life, you have to be the abundance, meaning you have to say, okay, I see I wake up in the morning, I hear birds chirping out my window, how beautiful life is. There's the world is awake, the sun came up, I've got electricity, I've got water, I've got a smartphone device, I've got Wi-Fi. I have access to so much. I'm never actually trading. I'm never actually losing money, because every dollar I spend comes back to me in some type of service that enriches my life, that empowers my life, that gives me access to things. I'm never out of anything. To start viewing things that way, to be in that, to be in a state of abundance is to be in a state of gratitude and a state of safety and a state of knowing that no matter what happens, because the only reason that we, would seek to want to acquire more money is because it would provide more safety and maybe more opportunity. We'll start seeing those opportunities around you now. If you want to be in a relationship, again, the success story that I told you, it was really more a matter of, was she seeing the love that was already present, or was she seeing through the lens of the past, where even if love was right in front, because, she was in a family environment, there was no cursing, there was no arguing, there was no screaming, there was no, anything like that. But there was just this distance where nobody really ever actually connected. So she was in a state of being where, I could be in a room with somebody, but not connecting with them. But here were all of these opportunities all of these dates and all of these, outings and moments where connection was possible, but she had to observe the connection she had to observe the possibility in that specific circumstance. Otherwise, it was just more of the same. It's just more of the past. It's like, this is just who I am. I'm always somebody who's reaching out. So you're only ever seeing more of yourself. You are the only end. There's nothing else out there besides you. If you're seeing lack, it's because you're in a state of lack. If you have chaotic, drama-filled friends, it's because you've got chaos and drama inside you, which is nothing to condemn yourself about. It's nothing to be upset about. It's realizing that, like, the control has always been within, as Luke 17:21, the kingdom is within, it's not out there, which means, and there's many ways to interpret that. I'm always talking about that verse. Everybody's, in the space is always talking about that verse, but, the interpretation that I come up with today is that, everything that we think is going to be our kingdom, meaning we think heaven is out there, we think the love is in the relationship, we think that the safety is in the money, we think that the security is in the job, we think that, our confidence is in our style and the clothes that we're wearing, or I've got to shoot my cheeks full of stuff and make my lips plumper, and or that's what stereotypically feminines do, and some masculines do it as well. But and I live in the Midwest, so the masculine example isn't gonna go buy a big truck. We think that the feeling and the state of being and all that we're seeking is out there, and it's not out there. It's in here. We have to be that confidence. We have to be that gratitude. We have to be that abundance. And then we'll see things that are consistent with that. But we're not going to what we observe out there, what the external world can provide us, is validation of what is already our perceived certainty of that which dwells within, because you can be certain everything's happening. So what you're certain of is really more the decisions that you've made in terms of what you assign to be the truth. It's all truth. If you're looking for reasons that people are terrible, you're going to find it. If you're looking for reasons as to why the world is wonderful, you're going to find it, because everything's happening. So one does not invalidate the other. Seeing somebody do something good does not invalidate the fact that there's evil in the world. Seeing evil in the world does not invalidate the fact that there's good. And I don't like thinking in terms of good or bad, but I'm just making a very simple example in terms of the fact that, whatever it is you choose to observe is true. It's true, because it's all happening. None of it's separate, but it's a matter of, like, your reality, your personal experience. And Joe Dispenza says, your personality is going to determine your personal reality. You break that down to, like, what do you observe to be the truth? And our certainties are built upon what we know. What you're seeing out there is what you know to be the case, not what you believe, not what you falter, not what you doubt, but what you know to be the case. And what you know to be the case is likely just what you've experienced over and over and over again. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe it or replace that, your refusal to know it, because we falter with that belief. We go back and forth with the belief. Some days we're good, some days we're bad. We're swinging, for one extreme to the next. And one day I feel like I have everything, and the next day I get a text and I feel like my manifestation's never going to come, and now I'm in a bad state, and now I'm, questioning, is any of it already real? But your refusal to believe it is the reason that you don't see it, so you see it now. You see it in yourself. You go into meditation, you turn away from the world, and you see it within yourself, because you're only ever going to see more of yourself, which would then require you to start spending more time with yourself. If you're always out with friends and always doing stuff and always occupied, and you have 1,000,003 activities, great. Do you have 15 minutes for yourself? And meditation doesn't have to be some, like, a perfect Zen activity. I was talking to somebody and they're like, oh, you meditate. I couldn't meditate. I don't know how to quiet my mind. I'm like, well, the fact that you're trying to do something is probably the reason the meditation is hard for you. Just to sit with yourself, to sit in and be with the space within. Eventually, Alan Watts says, the best way to clear out muddy water is to let it sit. You just sit with yourself. You close your eyes and you sit with yourself. Hell, turn on a frequency, but it's something that has to be every day. You have to pay attention to yourself. If the state of your internal world is what you're seeing and you're not paying attention to your state of your internal world, you're probably being controlled by the past. You're probably running a type of automatic conditioned pattern of truth that has been that you inherited either from the media or your parents or your culture or your gender, or there's some type of script that is operating that has led you to a certain amount of conclusions about who you are and what you're going to experience in this world if you're not being intentional about it. Because if we look at manifestation as just a creative act of being, that's already happening all the time. It's just who are you being is the question. So you are the only end. You're all that you are all that you will ever see. You will only get more of what you already have, which is that's a cheat code if you know that as a heaven on earther. But it also means that nothing out there is going to change. There's no point in trying to manipulate outside circumstances if you're not even the person that would experience the circumstance that you believe that you want. Somebody who is lonely all the time and gets on a dating app is only going to find more people to make them lonely. That's all that can happen there, because they're in a state of being lonely. We think, okay, I'll fix my loneliness by manipulating a condition. I'll put myself out there by getting on an app. And what do you typically find? You're only going to find more of yourself. It has to be what you see is because it's in resonance with who you say that you are. So wrapping up today's transmission of the Ministry of Assumption Absolute, I do thank you for tuning in and co-creating this moment with me. My name is Lucian St. James. Check out the Dispatches from the Edge of Obvious podcast, philosophical take, a deeper take on these similar themes. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments or send them to my email, and I will make sure that they get into the loop of transmissions here, the Ministry of Assumption Absolute. And check out the Liberation Chronicle, which is the written word of the platform. Remember to be good to yourselves and others, because everybody's just a version of you anyway. Until next time.